Well, this video has ended, so I'm just going to erase this one off of the...
Yeah, that sounds good. So now it's just pulsing and pulsing and pulsing some. Oh, wait, it says we're live now. Hello, live.
And yet we're still... Oh, wait.
No. And pulsing. It legit just started right this second on this platform. But apparently it's been live for at least a minute.
Oh my word.
So here we go.
Okay, for all of you who are, because I'm trying to find if I'm live on my page and if we actually have a screen, we're redoing this as take 2 for Live and Unscripted on Wednesday, May 8th. And as I was erasing the one we just did off of the Facebook and saw this ad for Creole Brew. P.S. They don't pay me for this, but maybe they should. Says ditch coffee, choose chocolate, and they have new limited varieties, including a chocolate peanut butter. I love Creole Brew. I don't Creole. I call it Creole. I could be pronouncing incorrectly. Please forgive me if I am. I love this stuff. So
really, I've never heard of it.
Really?
I've never heard you talk about it either.
Oh, I have some upstairs.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have to try
We're
that.
totally gonna try it. Maybe not the peanut butter chocolate kind.
Oh yeah, that might not work well for me.
It would work well for me. Anyway, okay. Welcome to Live and Unscripted for May 8th. This is take 2. And with your host, Jennifer Saunders, spelled JJ. And
Leah, spelled Ligia.
Yeah. I'm excited to be here. I feel a little scattered, like to just put it up front and honest and real. Like my mind feels a little scattered. I didn't feel super great yesterday, and just coming back into it for today. And I have no idea really what we're going to talk about. And that both excites me and makes me a little bit nervous. This is a program where we let inspiration be the guide. Even if I have a guest, if you watch our past programs, which you can find on The Righteous Rebels Facebook group or therighteousrebels.com/live and unscripted.
I'll put in that.
We'll house those there. Thank you to those of you who are tuning in from the Righteous Rebels Facebook group. We've got LinkedIn here today, and we also have our YouTube channel. So thank you to all of you. And you know what? Share us, pass us along. It helps us out. We're ready to grow. We're ready to expand. And it's a team effort. It's a team effort, and it requires your assistance in helping us do that. So just thank you in advance for assisting us along. This is a program where I started, I don't know, gosh, it's probably been 7 years ago under the name Living Courageously Exposed. And I was on a podcast platform, and I was doing a little bit of like after show production, and I hated it. I like the live action of this. I don't always love a podcast. It's like, it takes the humanness out of it. It takes the pauses and the thinking and the verbal mistakes and the realness. And so I took a break. I loved that platform. You can still go find those, Living Courageously Exposed. Maybe we should pull those over onto.
Yeah.
Anyway, I loved it because I would interview people that I didn't know. And I ask one question, and then I let inspiration be the guide. When I started this one, we still interview guests and we let inspiration be the guide. But sometimes we come on and we're the guests, and we still let inspiration be the guide, which again, I absolutely love, because I never know what's going to come out of my face. And that's the part that makes me nervous a little bit, just the unknowingness, because my mind likes to have the planning and likes to have some of that structure. But my soul is like, let me guide you, let me feed you. And so I just love that part of it. And I love having those conversations with our guests where we ask the first question and then we listen. We practice listening on here and formulating questions based off of what they're saying. And it's just amazing. It's amazing the places those conversations take us. one conversation that really took me unexpectedly was the conversation with this person right here. That I shouldn't cover my mouth for those of you who might be reading lips. I just love it how real people are willing to get, and how honest and vulnerable, and dang, it makes for a good show. So there you go. We always start with breathing, and we're going to do that today. It's a practice that I've looked into. I've practiced. I mean, we all practice breathing every day, but it's
Do we though?
I was going to say it's the actually being conscious of the breath and how it assists us, and recognizing what it does for us and how it actually fills us. So I like to say on this program, let's let go of what's already happened in the day, and let go of what we think is going to happen in the day based off of our planners, our schedules, or our kids, or whatever, and get present right here, right now. And taking a few moments to breathe allows us to do that. And so I'm going to let Leah, she doesn't know this, she's making a post.
I looked up Living Courageously Exposed, and you can actually find it. It's on Apple. It's on all
the
Spotify.
Platforms. Yeah.
I pulled the one from Spotify just because that's the app I have, but it's on Apple as well.
Yeah, we originally did it on Anchor, and then Anchor put it out to the other platforms. So
yeah, that's super cool. But you can check them out there. So that's what I've been doing while you share what that's all about.
Awesome. Do you want me to do the breathing exercise then?
I want to say yes, because it's easy to pass stuff off. But I'll just do it because it's not a comfortable thing for me. And I get lost in actually doing the thing. And then I forget to explain the thing. And then I get self-conscious that I haven't explained the thing properly. And then that should be done a certain way. And
oh man, you're real.
So
you're real.
So it's just going to be a practice for me to play along and show up and do something uncomfortable. So we're just going to keep it simple.
Okay, before we start though, I want to know
why you look like this.
I
what does that mean?
Because I said I started this a few minutes ago. I threw on some clothes so that you didn't have to see me in my house robe. Although why did I just say that? House robe?
Because I say house coat.
Maybe that's why. In my robe, it was super comfy, but I thought, I can show you this. I didn't really want to show you. Okay, another time. My mind's like, why not? Why not just do it in your house robe? That's what you were comfy in. So I said to Leah, we're playing pickleball after this, and she was going to get ready. I'm like, don't worry about getting, I just threw on a hoodie. Like, we're going to change our clothes afterwards. And then she came down looking like a movie star.
I just have this brush roller thing because my hair was kind of wild because I slept with it wet. And so it's like doing this funkety thing. I'm not a huge...
what?
Funkety thing. So I'm not a huge fan of hats, and because then it flattened. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like a hair dryer with a rolling brush. And then as I'm doing that, I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm going to go get sweaty in an hour or so. But I'm like, it was just enough and it's okay. And then I threw on a shirt. So here I am.
You're just, it's super cute. And so am I. In my hat and hoodie.
Yes, you are. But that's your style too, right? It's
one of them.
Own that, right? Definitely. And I think it's funny because it's a comfort thing, but I feel more uncomfortable sometimes.
The reality was, if we're being really honest, I didn't want to put on a bra. I wasn't ready to get ready to play pickleball yet. So I'm like, I'm putting on a hoodie, and it's cold enough outside that I can still wear a beanie.
There you go. There you go.
So, all right, moving on. Breathing.
It just reminds me of those moments where we can just actually be candid and honest and real, and
which should be lots of the moments, or most of them.
Well, yeah. So many stories are flittering through my head.
Okay, so last week on mine's right there. Will you grab it? So last week, before we go to breathing, let's talk about this really quick. like being real. Leah does a paint cast on Thursdays on these very channels called Creative Unraveling. And she teaches, and I have freakouts. Or I'm learning to not have freakouts and to let my mind just relax into the process. And so as she's painting and she's teaching, I'm sharing, she's asking questions, or I'm just sharing like what my experience is, so that you as a newbie, or maybe not a newbie, just someone who sits in your own perfectionism or judgment of yourself, can have permission to speak the things out loud and to move them through and to recognize it's just part of being human. So sometimes she shows me what we're going to do, and I'm like, I really have a freak out inside myself, mostly. Sometimes it's outside before we start. And last week was one of those. I thought the picture was cool. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I can do something like that. And I had a minute to hand draw the picture out. And in my mind, so we're drawing koi fish. And I said out loud, awesome, I'm going to draw amazing looking zucchinis. And when I drew them, like, this is those moments of realness we were just talking about. I looked at them and I said out loud, it looks like sperm. But here's the cool thing is, like, there's erasers. And I did a lot of erasing and talking it out with Leah through the program, and actually came up with some pretty good looking koi fish. Yeah. So if you guys want to, have your own experience there, or want to watch Jen just have freakouts while Leah calmly goes through the process of painting, join us on Thursdays. We don't have a really set time for that yet, just Thursdays, because that's kind of how creativity works. It comes when it comes, and we take time or make time for it. It's Leah's the guide, and I'm the guinea pig.
Yeah. But you can always find them on therighteousrebels.com/creativity, or I put them in the Facebook group, in the art gallery. So check out the art gallery in the Facebook group. Actually, it's a place where we've invited members of the group to just share whatever art they're working on. And there's been some really neat shares in there.
There's been some cool stuff in there. And it doesn't matter if it's a painting, or if it's a crocheted thing, or it's a poem, or a meal, or maybe learned how to do a cool karate move or something. Like, that's art and creativity as well. So,
well, and I'd also invite you to, like, check out people's stuff and give them a like or give a comment, and just give someone that little extra boost. And because really we need so little encouragement to be inspired, and it's so uplifting when someone sees us and gets us in that moment and sees us through our art. So yeah,
I totally just felt myself breathe in that just like,
what do you mean by that?
There was something that you said about giving people a like, and just like breathing into that, and accepting that, but also being willing to give it, and building people up, and making, their courage and their vulnerability like normal, celebrating that they put up their koi fish or whatever it is.
Because it's a vulnerable thing to share things that we've made. I think of, I
think we're going to talk a lot about vulnerability and creativity today, by the way. I feel it boiling and bubbling up in the things that we've been working on the last couple of weeks and the last couple of days. But before we get there, it's coming. Let's go into that breathing exercise really quick.
Okay. So I'm just going to invite you. I like to use hand on my heart.
I do too.
Just to feel my heart and get really back in my body. I like to close my eyes. You're invited to do whatever is comfortable for you, and just really feel your breath. Breathe it in, and like feel your lungs opening up and pulling in all that air, and then breathe it out, and like really feel that out breath all the way down to your sit bones. Go a little farther to your knees. Breathe it out right down to your toes. Get all that air out, and then just sit there for a second. feel that sensation. For me, it's like a pulling of my lungs. I'm wanting to pull that breath back in and, fill it back up again. You can do it on your own and just feel your breath go right through your body down to the floor. Notice the sensation of your sit bones, of your feet on the ground. Feel the beat of your heart, how your clothes feel on your skin. Really feel into your body. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes.
That was a scary thing to ask me today because mine really just wanted to stay closed.
Fair enough.
Oh my gosh. I as you're talking, I was witnessing for myself like how much I feel, how my toes were positioned on the bar of the chair, and because I feel my body a little more today, I can feel like sitting on the chair. It feels extra hard today. But I can feel like my hat over my ears and places where my hoodie is touching my skin, and it's kind of cool. And I love those moments of just becoming really present with where I'm at, and I start to notice like what I can hear and what maybe I can smell, and I just love that place where I can allow my senses to really come together, or maybe others, because my eyes are closed, my other senses are heightened. But just the like calmness and coherence that happens with the heart and the brain and even the gut. And this is the space that we want to encourage you to get into when you have a decision to make, when you are in a heated situation, when you're driving and road rage wants to set in, or someone's cut you off, or you're in a hurry, that you just take a moment to breathe and get yourself into coherence where you can actually be an incredible creator and decision maker, and you're creating out of consciousness, and not just out of old patterns and habits that maybe don't create all the things that you would like to create. So
I have an appreciation. I was totally willing to, and maybe even wanting to bulldoze over the breathing thing. So there's a part of me that still didn't want to do it. I was so willing to just keep talking.
Like, let me just keep talking.
And I think part of that is just like the resistance to do things that are vulnerable, like that. I don't mind watching, or when that's happening in a live setting. I can feel into that, and I think it's more like it brings up feelings of being self-conscious, or like looking dumb, or like, am I wasting your time? And I get all in my head about it, but really, if it serves you, you're going to do it. And if not, you're not going to do it. And that's totally okay. And that's not, it did post with the picture.
Yeah. Are we live somewhere though?
Yeah, we're still, I think so anyways. Jen, I have no idea. I'm not trusting this system super. Yeah, it's still live. So I apologize for the interruption, but like we've been having
some issues with our broadcasting platform. So
it'll say we're live, but we're not actually live. Oh, but wait, we're live.
Yeah, I just didn't see it in Righteous Rebels.
I don't see it there either. Okay, so we can always post it after.
All right.
But yeah, that's kind of where we are. I'm not sure what I was talking about.
You're talking about wanting to bulldoze over the breathing. And, I did catch that word because it's uncomfortable, and like how we bulldoze through other things or just ignore things when they're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you guys see that face? Did you see that face? I want to know more about that face. Like, what was the thought behind that expression?
Just being vulnerable. You asked me, I was debating whether I would want to talk about an experience that we had yesterday. And and you're like, well, why wouldn't you? And I think it's because, you know, we all have a way that we want to be seen.
Sure.
And a way that we think we have control over how people see us. And I think it pokes the parts of me that that I'm put together and that I'm okay. And a lot of that comes from insecurities, like from a long time ago, of not being okay and really not feeling in control of any part of my life. And so I think it pokes those places of, if I am open and vulnerable about those things here, that's going to mean like I'm still that person. I'm still having those struggles, and I'm still having I'm still crazy, or whatever the story is. And the reality is that was a long time ago. And
absolutely,
some of those things.
And it's interesting
too.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, how when stuff like that happens in our world, how, especially if we stay in a place where we know people from when we were younger, or we'll just say younger, and how sometimes those people hang on to those pieces of us and project them on our current life situations, versus allowing us to just change and grow and grow out of, or mature out of some of those. Sometimes it's just regular human development and growth that we're going through. It's natural and normal, and almost everybody experiences it. It's that we choose to hang on to that for other people, instead of allowing their growth and expansion to take place. And maybe it's because we're unwilling to see our own growth and expansion. It's scary. And I find that interesting, because you're now in a place where the people around you, you're new to all the people around you. They don't know your life history. They don't know your story, and how that stuff still wants to hang on for you.
Like someone's going to find out. Someone's going to judge me from that space. And like, it's so bizarre to say for me.
Such a real thing for us though. Like,
yeah, like it's because I carry it, and because I have judgment about it, and which I've come a long way from, but it's still there in moments where I'm, you know, and maybe the judgment is I'm regressing, or I'm slipping back into old patterns, or I'm not as, you know, self-aware as I think I am, or I'm not as healed as I thought I was. And the reality is it's never ending. Especially
if someone you know or are close to, or who knows some of that history, pokes at you. Like, it's easy to go back into those things, or to think you're going back into those things. And the reality is you're not. You're feeling them, layers of them, you're healing.
You know, it's funny. So a story that comes up for me is I used to have a real anxiety around packing. It could be just packing to go for an overnight, or packing to, I think that's part of the reason I didn't do a lot of camping with my kids, because it takes a lot of packing and pre-planning. And so we would camp in the backyard because that felt safer for me. You know,
and probably safer in a lot of ways. I mean,
yeah. And, you know, I really struggled with the idea of packing, and I'd see how people like lay out all their stuff on their bed, and they're planning what they're going to wear, and it looks so organized and beautiful. And I would put it off like to the last possible second, and then just like in a whirlwind, throw stuff in my bag and call it done. And I didn't understand what that was for me for so long. And I hated packing.
Okay. I've observed her angst over packing, and watched her observing me packing.
Very different.
And I didn't understand what that was until keep going. I found it a very fascinating conversation experience that we had.
Well, I was having a moment, because I'm feeling anxious. I feel the tears coming, and I'm feeling it now.
Feel it.
It's so funny. And you know some of my story, and you know, and it's in my book, The Living with Dirty Glasses. So,
which we happen to have a copy of right here, unplanned, but there you go. You can get that on Amazon. She'll put it in the comments of how.
But there's a story there where I'm about 15 years old. I spent some time in a facility for a while, came back home.
This makes me emotional.
For a couple months, and things didn't go well. And I don't know, I had a fight with my parents. I went to a friend's, I didn't tell them I was going. I was upset and whatever. And I came back and I was locked out of the house. I snuck in through a window and, slept in the basement because the main house was locked. And, waking up the next morning, and I was in trouble. Like, I was in big trouble. I was going to be grounded for life and all this stuff. And just, seeing my dad come, we lived on a farm, and seeing my dad come in and just like, he was angry. And, I just remember him throwing a duffel bag at me and saying like, you have to get out. You can't stay here and blah, blah, blah. And I'm 15 years old. And, I'm packing, frantically packing. And, there's an altercation and all this stuff. And I literally get like thrown out of the house and then pulled back in. It was the most confusing and scary moment. And, he's like, call someone and figure out where you're going to go. You're not staying here. And then he drives me 45 minutes to the city I was more familiar with because we had just moved. And, he gets out, gives me my bag, gives me a hug, and then gets in the car and says, "Do you have any money?" And I said, "How?" Like, no, but I felt so incredulous. Like, how can you even think I have money? I don't have a job. I just packed whatever I thought I should pack in that moment.
And how old were you?
I was 15.
Yeah, you're 15.
And then he drove off. And, Jen brought that up when I'm having a moment around packing, and I never ever made the connection. And just how different that experience has been for me, like just to pack for, we're going to be away for the week, or pack for this event or whatever. And it doesn't have the same angst. I can actually like think about what I'm doing and plan what I'm going to, like, it's just such a different feeling. And, just helping me make that connection has calmed. I didn't even know this whole time. I didn't even know. I'm like 40 now. And all that time I was carrying that and I didn't even know.
So what was that for you? Like, what do you think, what was released or recognized that you hadn't recognized before?
I didn't understand why. I didn't understand what was happening in my body, because I felt it. Like, I felt myself like gear up in my body, and I felt like, I
had to do that
waited
before
to the last minute.
So you're saying when you were 15, you had that like gear up feeling, or is that just something that came with packing after, for the lots of years afterwards?
I just noticed I hated packing after that. And, but when you made that connection, I remember, oh my gosh, that's how I felt in that moment, because I don't know when he's going to come back in the room. Cause things were thrown and hands and like all the things, like it was a really tense and scary, frantic moment. And
again, if you want the story, it's in the book, Living with Dirty Glasses, by Leah, spelled Ligia. It's also on Amazon. We'll put the link in the comments.
So I just never made that connection that's why I was feeling that. And that, I was going to say packing was a trigger for me that way of like, I have to go, I have to get out fast, which also, how I set myself up for that of like waiting till the last minute. I could never pack, even though I knew I was going to, I was thinking Florida, or not even Florida, but just thinking what's coming. I have lots of time to do it, but I don't know. I couldn't make myself do it before with time and thought and all of that.
So So going back to how you, it's interesting. Like I did not have any idea this was going to show up today. But when you would pack like that to go wherever you're going for a weekend or for a week or whatever, and you've just taken your stuff, you've waited to the last minute, you felt all the emotion and the anxiety of that, and you just stuff a bunch of shiz in your bag. Like when you get to the place, like what were your feelings and emotions like after that? Like how does that?
I always felt disorganized. Like I always felt, so my friend used to call me Dory. And I think I just lived a lot of my life that way, kind of in a space of like not paying attention and living that story of like, whatever, it's just who I am and I'm scattered and disorganized and, and I think for me, it was relief to have it over with and I didn't have to think about it. And then I'm also of the attitude, like, I'll just work with whatever I have. It's just.
So you were okay with going somewhere with a bag just stuffed full of stuff, not knowing.
It used to cause me more angst, like, especially when I became a mom, but it wasn't even about me because I can go with very little and I can make whatever work and that. But I wanted to be prepared for my daughter and, make sure I had everything looked after for her. And that used to cause me a lot of angst because this is how I am. I don't like this. But it's the feeling of even like seeing stuff in the bag and like it was it just caused a lot of anxiety. And I remember my mom or my grandma saying to me, like, whatever, you live in a city, you can always like get stuff if you need it, or we have stuff here and it's not a big deal. So it was just being okay with whatever I had.
So what had, since that conversation, what has shifted for you? And like, has the experience of packing become more pleasant? Is there still angst to it? Like what has shifted for you since the recognition of like, oh my gosh, like I was still holding the energy and the emotion of this one traumatic experience. And it's more than one traumatic, but in that particular moment, like, what has shifted for you, and how have you made it okay that that's how it was, and now you're shifting into this new way of doing, like.
I think it's just when we have an understanding of things, we can navigate through them differently. Like when we have that awareness, we can check in with the emotions that come up. So for me, it's been like, oh, I recognize this feeling. It's not actually that I'm feeling anxious around the packing. It's coming from this. And then I can remind myself, like, I'm okay, I'm safe, I have time, and just, talk through that process instead of being like, what the hell's going on? Why do I feel like this? I feel out of control, and like feeling anxious about that. Like I don't know anyone that loves the feeling of not being in control of their body. Like it's scary and it's so disconcerting. And it's like, how long is this going to last? And what's wrong with me? And what have I done? And what, like, then we want to go to a source. But if I know what I'm managing, it quiets it. And I know where it's coming from. So, now I know the source, I can turn down the volume. It's not an ever-present thing anymore.
And so what has, because I know that you've been on several trips since, well, just a couple, I guess, since that time. Like what has that experience been like for you? Like just having the awareness of, okay, this is what it was. I've made peace. One, I've recognized it. I've made peace with it. I let it be okay. I may still have moments of that show up. And it may show up in other places still, like me too. Like, what has that been for you? And like, what is that now, that traveling experience, that you have a different understanding of like what the packing anxiety was for you?
I think it's just knowing that I'm safe. I think one of the sweetest things that helped with that was that you helped me pack and show me how to do it different, and how, how you do it, so it gives me an example and just a thoughtful place to not copy but learn from, and that it doesn't have to be an anxious thing, because it's always been how I've done it. And to have an example of this is how it can be done. It's not how you have to do it, but it's something that works for me, and take what you will from it. But I think just I was having a moment, like, I wasn't feeling anxious, but I was feeling like, I don't know how to do this different, because this is how I've always done it.
Yeah.
And just the thoughtfulness of how you packed my bag for me, and just what that meant for me. And obviously I didn't even know until this moment, just how important it was to have that loving example of, you don't have to do it that way. So,
well, and I've watched you since that moment, and I've watched you pack your own bag. And so what was that experience like for you? Because I've heard you say things that I think are just precious.
I think it's just like, one, it's calmer for me. And I'm wanting to organize things more.
That part was super fun to watch. She's like, I dumped out my bag and I have my chapstick here, so I know where everything's at.
It's something that comes up for me is like, I don't have to be Dory. And I think that was a character I embodied.
Who's Dory from, just for someone who may not know?
From Nemo, Finding Nemo, where it's the blue fish that has a very short attention span. So like they'll start talking to you about something, and then, hey, how are you? And like it's a brand new conversation. And that's how I move, because I was so distractible, and I was, it was my story, and it made me feel safe, and I didn't have to look at anything different. So just having the freedom of, I don't have to be that, and I can actually employ some of the characteristics that I already have that I know are comfortable for me, but somewhere I wasn't allowing myself to express because it didn't go with my story. So, well,
so what does that lead into? Like, I'm just thinking, like, okay, I didn't have any idea this story was going to come up today, and just hearing you talk about, well, and observing you, like the emotions and the feelings that come up, and that I love it when when I find something and I say something like, hey, is it possible that maybe some of these feelings could be coming from when you were 15 and a bag got thrown at you and was like, you have 10 minutes, pack your shit and you're out of here. Like, and how there's this moment of like, oh my gosh, I've been caught. It's like what you talked about earlier of like someone seeing you and how you feel like that's a really messy part of your world, but I don't see it that way. I just like, and how you want to fight me on that. Like, even in that moment is like, I'm so angry that you know this of me, or
angry,
that
not
could be
angry.
Yeah.
But it feels
exactly
exposing.
Like the 15-year-old is like, you've seen me. That's I always find that interesting. And so how do you, because it happens to all of us. So how in those moments, because I watched you in that particular moment want to be upset, like exposed, and yet you allowed me to, we had a great conversation, and then you allowed me to say, hey, can I assist you in packing, and I can show you how I do it that worked for me. How do you move from that space of like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so exposed, and sometimes it looks like she wants to like throat punch me, but
I do.
And so how do you move from that space to like does breathing come into that for you? Like where what is that for you, and how do you move past it so that in a future moment, because that moment's going to happen again. Packing is going to happen again. So how do you take that and move it into the next one so that it's more okay for you?
I think it's really, so what you talk to me, what's helpful is when you tell me, like, because I've asked like, what is it I do that gives you that impression, or what is it that makes you think that or notice that, or like, I'm wanting to recognize my own patterns and really be honest with myself, and which is really hard because we all
really courageous.
Well, and we all want to hold an image of ourselves that we know how to do this. We're not those things that you think we are, because we have our own judgments about it. Like I'm not sure how to say it. I think part of me just wants to run from that part of my past so much, and I don't realize how much the protector, my 15-year-old that just learned how to get stuff done and learned how to survive and navigate her world. I think that part of me wants to take over in places where I feel vulnerable and put up, masks and put up shields and armor and like be a warrior to defend myself. But
whatever it is we think we're defending,
yeah,
which is different for everybody.
So, I think it's challenging. Is like, I think the difference for me is that I know you're a safe space, and that's not something I've had, and or that I could trust, or that I did have, and the relationship changed, or people showed a different face, or it became too uncomfortable for them. Like whatever the thing was, I think your consistency of showing up and not judging me for it, or not thinking there's something wrong with me, or something. There's a space where I want to be right, and and that's hard to admit. Like I've never seen myself that way.
That's a legit thing. We all have a space where we just want to be right, and we're willing to do anything to defend that.
Well, just that, exactly. And for me not to be right implies in my thinking that you're finding something wrong with me, or you're picking me apart, or you're this, or you, like, whatever the story is. And then those are the places of like, I'm trying to protect, but the reality is I don't need to protect. And when I come from that space, I'm not myself. And I'm noticing what that feels like more, and seeing myself through that wall.
So when you say that, I would like for you to describe, like, when you say that you're not yourself, so that when someone who's watching has a similar experience, they're like, oh, I don't, like, what are some things for you? Like for me, I've had moments where, when I was with Shawnee, that there were moments, legit, I don't know why she didn't kick my butt to the curb. Like I was so not in, I beside myself, literally beside myself. And I knew that I wasn't myself, but I could not pull myself out of it. And I knew it was happening, and maybe that kind of stuff is happening too. But for you, like, what's that experience of like, I'm learning to recognize that I'm not myself, or that I'm not acting in ways that are in my higher, healthier self? Like, can you describe that?
I think you pointed out yesterday of like, how I talk to you is different. That I come from more of a head space than a heart space. And the way I realize that pattern in myself is realizing I'm going to logic. But I did this, and I followed the rules this way, and I did, I checked all the boxes, so you can't tell me I'm wrong. And I fight for that logic.
Yeah.
When in reality, if I'm in my body and in myself, I move more from a heart space, and I don't feel as rigid in my body. I noticed yesterday I was like, my body felt super tense.
We may have had an incident last night where we got to practice this. She's talking about this because it just happened.
Yeah.
And it's something that's like big on our minds. And you know what I think is happening too, Leah, is that we're creating a course. We're getting ready to put out a course on feelings versus emotions and how that kind of stuff shows up. So we're being given an opportunity to like really recognize it and practice it and doing the things that we know in our hearts are valuable ways to show up and express and live and wanting to share that. So I think that's part of what's going on is we always get a practice ground.
Right. Well, and as you know, we're watching another course, and this download of the feeling emotions course is coming, and I'm writing notes, and you know, I'm thinking I'm sharing it with you, and you're like, okay, but what's the difference? I just do what I do, because I've said how much my emotional and feeling journey has changed since I started talking with you, and how I look at emotions and how I judge them. And, you know, those are all integral parts of what the course is going to be, to really have an understanding and learn to be okay with having all the feelings.
Yeah. And that was the piece I was asking her to explain, is like, how has you interacting with me changed some of that for you? Because I just do what I do. I don't always, it's not a conscious thing for me to be like, okay, I'm doing this. Okay, I'm doing that. It just is something that just like, it emotes from me or is downloaded through me. A lot of times I'm just the conduit for the information. And it's funny because we were talking about, you're getting this download to sit, you know, to write stuff down. I sit down to write stuff down and I'm like, dang it, cup of hot tea sounds good. I think I'll go do that. You know, but what was cool is, as we're talking about it, it's also the difference in how we work or how we're inspired is
I'm sharing topics.
We're talking about it, and then it's like she taps a point, and I'm just like,
yeah.
And then I go, oh, I feel so much better. Like I could get that. Then I feel inspired too. But so we were talking about showing up and how that has emotions and stuff have shifted for you.
So I think just being more honest, for one, just really being honest and learning not to judge emotions and really understand what emotions are doing within us. I think we get so caught up in shoving them down. It's part of why I stopped drinking, so I could feel more, because I think knowing or not knowing,
keep talking.
I was masking, and you know, putting up a front, or you have big emotions and you get super busy, or you start doing all these things, and that's part of what I was noticing. Part of those conversations, like with Jen, I was going through a tough time last year and big emotions, and she would give me words of comfort, and I would fight her on that. Like I would feel almost offended and like she's being condescending, but it wasn't her. It was, I realized I wasn't familiar with comfort and what that felt like. And I had always been accustomed to just doing my own thing and ignoring and shoving down. I was just talking about comfort and just learning how to be comforted and how to navigate the prickles.
That was a biggie.
That would come. But it was understanding that the feelings that were coming up in me may have been poked, but not because you're doing anything wrong. You're giving comfort, and it's coming from a loving place. But I wasn't accustomed to receiving that kind of comfort, and it's always kind of been like, go figure it out, and just get over it. And so you find ways to mute your feelings that way.
So how has that recognition for you played out as we move forward in like recognizing like, oh, something has hit me, and I either recognize a shift or I don't know the shift, or I've recognized a shift. And I think as a way of protecting, and again, we all do this, I'm going to ask you what's wrong with you and put it on you. Like, how has that, because that happens here. And we have some really sometimes intense conversation and intense feelings, and it's interesting to watch, like, what even gets poked in myself in that wanting, because part of my nature and character is to comfort, but to also to know when to just stand back. But it pokes my own stuff, and I get to go, oh, what? I wish I could be comforted, or like learning how to comfort myself, but to recognize, like, where has that poked things in me, and what am I feeling and experiencing, and how can I allow that to be okay in my own body, and without buying into, and I'm not just talking about Leah, I'm talking about other things, as other spaces that I've been in as well. And how do I stay in my own space and allow it to be comfortable while recognizing and holding space for the other person? And because you're here, we just got to do this last night, like, this is what we're talking about. But how has that learning how to be comforted, or to recognize that being comforted isn't weakness, has that assisted you in moving through hard spaces? And if so, like, how what has that done for you?
I think it's learning to receive. A big part of is learning that it's okay to be comforted, and that there's nothing wrong with someone offering me comfort. And it doesn't mean that I can't handle the things, or that I'm not strong. It just means that someone cares for me. And I think I've just operated from a space of, like, I just do everything myself, and I can't count on anyone, and I'm going to hold up, everyone else and be there for everyone else, but I'm okay. Like, and it's a way to keep people at a distance. And part of what I feel my life journey is to learn something different, and just that you can trust people. I think part of it is learning how to ask for comfort before I get to that space of, like, what feels like a point of no return, and I'm in a space. I haven't always recognized it, though, and it's.
So how are you learning? Because a little bit ago you said you're learning to recognize that in yourself. So how is that happening for you? How is that taking place to recognize, like, oh, because going, like, if we can talk about last night's experience a little bit, like, when you think you're okay, I know there's something different going on, just because I can observe I can observe the outside. Like, how do you come to a recognition of, like, whoa, maybe I actually am in I just call it a space, because I don't really know. I don't feel like anything's wrong, like, nothing's wrong with you. It's more that something has bumped you or poked you, and it's put you off a little bit. So I just call it in a space.
But it's so,
which made her mad for a long time. Like, and I had to say, like, it's about you.
But it's because it's, like, again, it goes back to that, like, if I admit, like, I feel like I'm causing a problem, or I'm upsetting something, that I'm causing upset where no upset needs to be.
And there we are. Oh my gosh. Jen, don't touch the screen during the broadcast.
Okay.
Or ever.
That's
one of my things, is, like, just messing things up royally, and I don't know how to fix them.
Yeah. I think for me, it's been, like, that you say that, and we watched this in the course yesterday, is, like, someone saying, but if I mess this up, the whole thing is over, and that's how it has felt in my world, is, like, if I don't do everything right, I'm going to lose everything. and it's scary. And I didn't recognize that I had shifted. You know,
are you talking in regards to last night?
In regards to last night, we were doing courses. I was working on a song, and you know, it's a feeling song, and one that I'm going to get to heal through. And I didn't realize that it was poking things in me. And
I read it, and I'm like, I don't know how it couldn't.
Yeah, and
it poked things in me, and it's not even my experience, but it's all of our experiences.
Yeah.
So like I was feeling stuff too, and I know you're living through it, and I'm like, there's no way it couldn't have.
But like, I felt I was fine, and you know, what I don't recognize sometimes is when I want to get busy, and you know, I start going on my phone, or I'm doodling, or I need to start moving more. And it's just how I've always coped when those things come up. So I suppress and just keep busy so I don't have to look at it or feel it. It's not a conscious thing. It's just something I'm recognizing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it took a minute to get down to that. But really, I think it comes down to being able to trust you, and just trust that you see something that I'm not seeing. And that you care enough that you're not trying to hurt me. Like,
well, and it's always an interesting, like think about in your own experience when there's a moment that feels confrontational, because in those moments my guard comes up, and you know, but I'm also trying to self-evaluate, like, is there validity to what's going on? And there is. Like, I had my own stuff poked last night, and it's valid stuff. It's stuff that we're working on. It's my own emotions. It's my own things that have held me back, and excuses that I've made, and you know, just sometimes just all the bullshit. And it was fascinating to be like, I'm pretty sure this isn't my stuff. Like, but sometimes when we're in that space, it can be super convincing, and the person talking to it is like, we know something's off. And I had to be really observant while still observing inside myself, like, what part of this is mine? But we all have clues. We all have clues when we've shifted into a space. And I had to just say, okay, higher, healthier self, like, what are the clues here? And I just started recognizing how I was feeling, and how I feel when we usually talk about those kinds of topics, even when they're tough. And there's a difference. And it's so interesting to observe this in Leah, because I know it happens inside myself. Like, we think we're okay. Like, we legit think we're so good at wanting to be right that we legit think we're okay. And I was watching as she was saying, like, hey, this is yours. Like, I'm fine. I was almost convinced. She was convinced. And
totally.
But there were some other clues, and that it's actually something that I'm not going to share. We can talk about that stuff inside of a class of things you can look for, but it was super interesting, because then I had to trust myself inside of this, what felt like sticky conversation. But that was really important at the same time, important for me individually, and us together, but also to Leah individually, and the things that we're building and creating. And then I had to practice courage, and I had to practice trusting myself, of like the download that I had just had that could maybe get into the space where Leah could feel into her heart, but then it requires me to take an action that feels scary. But what's beautiful is that when we follow those things, and we're not just like, this goes both ways. And I know that you probably have those experiences too, with the people in your world, is that when you're willing to trust that space and maybe ask that uncomfortable question, or make that uncomfortable move, how things just crack. They crack open. We call it melting here. And that it's not a derogatory thing. It's just me saying, I see you. I see you, and I see those parts of you. And then this part makes me emotional because I love watching this in other people, as their, that like ice starts to melt off their heart, or the barrier starts to fall away, and they recognize a piece of themselves, and they're able to say things like, if I was so afraid, if you saw this part of me, it just feels messy. Like, how many times have I said that in regards to myself? Like, and to be able to hold that space and just love the person that you're in the experience with in that moment, whether it's your spouse, or it's a kid, or it's a coworker, or maybe just a friend. Sometimes it can even be a stranger on the street. Being able to hold that space for them and let them know that they're just human. They're just human, and that they're normal and healthy and vibrant and beautiful, and that they're not the things that have happened to them,
or even the beliefs that they've carried for a long time, and that it's okay to be not on guard, like to put down the guard. I think that was the thing I noticed the most yesterday is I noticed the guard, and it's so weird to say, but like I could see myself and I could see the guard, and I'm wanting to get through, but this felt so like the wall, or whatever you want to call it, whatever that experience is for you, is like that felt so almost impenetrable, like, and almost like I think of a dragon defending its territory, like that piece wanting to come out and defend the guard, and
to be right, to defend the story, the rightness of the story,
to be okay. So
how did you move through that? Like, we had our moment, we had the melting, and what happens afterwards for you?
I just sob. Like I it's like a release, and I just get to be in that and feel that out, and I don't know, it's just I just feel calm after. It feels scary. Like, it feels scary to put that down, but when it's over, it also feels scary because, like, I didn't even see that go up. I didn't, and it's that whole thing that we started at the beginning of this, is that feeling of not being in control, and I didn't notice it. And, I try to be very conscious and aware and whatever. And I didn't know. And that to me feels scary because I want to be in myself and where my gifts are. And maybe that's just something I get to practice.
Yeah, because we all do it. And I don't know, I as challenging as some of those moments can be, no matter which one of us are in it, or what experience we're in with someone else, it also, like, the challenge, there's such a beauty to it as well. And just the recognizing of humanness, and all of the emotions that we move through, and the beliefs that we carry, and like taking the blinders off of those things, and recognizing and talking to those things. And these are the things that we're gonna talk about more in depth, like in the course that we're putting together, is it's tools of how to manage and move through just humanness,
How to recognize
and what this experience is, and recognizing that it's just an experience.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, how that feels to learn to recognize, but also just be okay with it. I had a thought and then it just left. So maybe it wasn't for me to share here.
I really appreciate you sharing. I really had no idea what was going to come out today. And we had talked about possibly talking about this. And I appreciate your vulnerability and your courage to share, because I know that it's a scary thing to do, and to put yourself out there like that. And thank you to you for just hearing and recognizing and lending your energy to the conversation. It also makes me think of, my own experiences, and because we're at time, we're not going to talk about them today, but we will. you know, where I get caught in my own stuff that way, and how I tend to show up or not show up, and places where I protect, and part of that way of protecting is pulling back or caring too much about what other people think, and so it causes me to pull back even more. And um, I just appreciate the sharing, and I look forward to sharing my experiences with you and hearing your experiences. And we're excited to put this course out. Uh, and I love the way that it came, and that's just by inspiration. It wasn't sitting down and being like, "Hey, what are we gonna?" It's how I want to live my life, and it's how I want to teach you tools of how to live your own, instead of the scrambling and the forcing and the hustling that we've been taught to do. That we actually can just be still, and we can listen, and we can feel, as scary as all of that is, and to just allow things to come, and to trust that in that, I'm going to use the word surrender and unfolding, just because that's been my experience of the last couple of years, is that in that experience, all of my dreams have not come true. But I'm learning how to be okay in the unfolding, and trusting that when I stop wanting to force things or hustling to do things in the way that I've been taught, and I can just go inside, that actually greater things come to me, and they fulfill in bigger, far better ways than even I could imagine or dream of. And I'm in the phase of just saying, show me how good it can get. Show me how good it can get. And then putting myself in the places of trusting that, and learning to feel the emotions, and just the trust piece moving forward. So we're excited to share the course with you. Go on to, I know it's in the comments. It's not in the comments, but it soon will be. Grab this book, Living with Dirty Glasses, by Leah herself. She also has another one called what?
Remember When.
Remember When. It's so cute. It has Ellie the elephant in it. Super fun book. And then I don't have a copy of our journal, because I was not planning to promote books, but we also have a journal. It was the first project we did together. It's super fun. It's super simply exploratory, and brings out the creative, playful side of us and you, but also the reminders of like, hey, it's okay to feel. It's okay to jot this stuff down. It's okay to be playful, and it's okay to be creative. And we just give you a space to do it. So all of that can be found on Amazon.com.
Yeah. And it is an Audible as well. If you're more of a...
What's an Audible?
My book.
What?
You didn't know that?
I had no idea.
That's funny.
I had no idea. Even cooler than I thought. Dang.
You're so funny. But just to finish off,
it's on Audible too.
It's part of why I choose to do this, why I wrote the book, is like, that stuff only has power over us if we continue to hide it and bury it. And
yeah,
I've just been committed in the last few years to shed light on it, and to let people know you're not alone in whatever your experience is, and that it's okay. And, you know, something you say often is, it says nothing about you. You know, that was an experience. That's, you know, something you live through, and you know, it's like going to university for life is what I look at it now. Like,
I know people ask me sometimes where I learned certain things, and I say the University of LIFE.
Yeah, right.
I learned great things in college, but my greatest lessons come in the University of LIFE.
I love that. All right, so
thank you for sharing. I know that's can be challenging.
It was good.
Super courageous, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we would love to hear your stories. Like, reach out if you want to come do a live and unscripted with us, if you have cool things, or you just want to hop on here and be brave and courageous with us and allow inspiration to be the guide into your story and your life. Reach out, and we'll get you booked. But there's no buts. And we'll be on tomorrow for Creative Unraveling.
Cast.
And then we're running a race on Saturday.
Yay!
Over the top. We just put on our own race a couple weeks ago. The Spitfire Ultra Trail Challenge.
Yep.
And I love going out and supporting other.
So we'll do a live at some point in the race on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll come to you live on Saturday from the race.
Sound good. All right.
Remember, we love you so much. And it's okay to be human. It's okay to feel. Be bold.
Be brave.
Be rebel. See you soon.